Good evening, everyone. I'm not sure what's going on with my computer, but here we go. I think that this has probably been the hardest few months of my life since we've started school, especially with my children being sick and my 3-year-old staying in the hospital for most of this since May the 7th. Anyways, so this lecture really hit home pretty hard actually with everything that's been going on in life. So the very first question is what ideal presented in this lecture has been the most helpful as a social worker? Um, for me, I think that the most helpful concept in the lecture was about trauma. I work with children every single day that has dealt with immense trauma on many, many different levels. However, if you use the word trauma, they tend to immediately shut down. They don't want to see that they have trauma. They'd rather be angry or upset than to think that there's any type of label for anything that they've been through. Um, Looking at trauma as something that has a seed of the capacity to withstand something allows me to see trauma in a different lens. And hopefully it'll allow me to be able to address trauma without actually using the word trauma. In this lecture, part of it was talking about children that has major sicknesses and the trauma that they experience because of that. Sorry, guys. Um, I never put it into perspective like that until I was listening to it in this lecture. So, with everything that my 3-year-old's been going through since May the 7th, we started with seizures, being diagnosed with epilepsy, seizures that caused him to quit breathing. It's hard to quit working. And then he ended up having recently a bad allergic reaction to the medication called Steven Johnson syndrome, where all of his skin essentially was burnt all over his body. So we're just recuperating from that now. Made me realize how much trauma he's been through already at such a young age. Um, every time the nurses and the doctors walk into the hospital, or when now we're taking him to the doctor, he just immediately starts screaming because he's worried that they're going to hurt him more than what he's already been hurt. Um, so that puts things in a whole new perspective. With that being said, I liked I thought it was really helpful to learn that trauma is an adaptive form of learning. And that there's different types of trauma, like the small t trauma and the big T trauma. I never knew that there was a difference and that it was labeled differently, and how the differences in the labels are for an individual. Sorry, guys. With trauma affecting our overall body and our reactions from the trauma. The second question is what has been the most challenging or confusing? I think in this lecture, what has been the most challenging for me was when we was talking about flight or fight mode, and asked about the question, what would we do if a mama bear was running toward us? Um, I would like to think that I would run away, but knowing everything that I've been through, it made me really look at my own life and how I've spent my entire life fighting in some sense or way or shape or form. So I would like to learn how to not always have my body in that fight mode, because I tend to go very quickly into the fight mode instead of the more nurturing and loving mode. So I think self-reflection is very difficult for me to do. It's very easy for me to help others with their problems. That way I don't have to look at the problems I have of my own. Alright, thanks for listening to me, guys.